Do your players suffer from Paladin Complex, Cleric Rash, or any kind of overtly lawful good behavior? Well, then try Evil Campaign. Well, not even a campaign, only a one-shot. Evil's got to start somewhere. Today we're going to be talking about how to put together an evil one-shot that can be done really quickly and really scratch that itch that your players might have to actually play somebody who's not a lawful good two-shoes kind of baby saver from trees. And why is a baby in a tree? I don't know. And this is something I came up with a while back, which I've run more recently in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, although yeah, you can still apply this to a lot of other systems. So why would you use an evil one-shot? Evil campaigns aren't always the most fun because they can go into some really dark places. But if your players have been talking to you or asking you or pleading with you in some cases to actually run an evil game, this is a good opportunity for them to get into the driver's seat of an evil character, maybe for the first time, and see how it goes. Because that's the whole idea behind this, giving your players a chance to do something that they haven't done before. And if they've played evil campaigns before, then this should be fun too, because it's going to be kind of slapstick and they get to really throw a one-shot character against the wall and maybe do something that they've never played before. If you're in the middle of something like a really complicated campaign and everybody's just sort of worn out because they've achieved a huge victory and they might just want to take a break from their regular characters for a little while, for one night, have fun being evil. That's what this is for. You really only need a couple of things. First things first is you need a battle mat layout of a pub or some kind of small business. The second thing you're going to need are the character sheets from your player's regular campaign. And just ask your players for their character sheets. We'll get back to that later. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to ask your players to create new characters that are one level higher than the regular characters that they've been playing. So if you're playing a campaign and everybody's level 5, have your players make some characters that are level 6. The thing to remember is don't sweat the details on these characters. These aren't supposed to have a whole lot of backstory. The thing that's important is that they need to be evil and they need to be okay working for an evil god or a demon or something like that. So here comes the part where you actually start to craft the universe. You're going to have your players name the pub, because this pub belongs to a god where one of their domains is teleportation. Belongs to an evil god where one of their domains is teleportation. This evil demon is going to be requiring sacrifices. You're going to be trying to get all of the people that visit this pub into a specific room in the pub. This is going to be called the altar room. Anytime anybody gets a sacrifice into the altar room and shuts the door, whoever is in the altar room disappears. They're gone. They've been sacrificed to the evil god. Now, how they get them in the altar room is really up to them, and that's where the fun comes in. Sometimes it's by combat, sometimes it's by persuasion, but it's important to know that if you're doing this for the first time, don't try to put a lot of stipulations on how the god will want sacrifices. Just as long as your players put some kind of body, alive or dead, in the altar room, that's good enough for the evil god. So sometimes this pub will appear out in the middle of the desert, on the top of a mountain, maybe in a small fishing village. It's going to appear in a place that works best for you as a storyteller. So if you want the pub in the desert, it's in the desert. If you want the pub in a city, it's in the city. Now sometimes, if you feel up to it, you can actually use this thing inside of a world that you might have already been playing in, but just in a different place. And once your players have characters, that's where you get to describe how they randomly appear inside this area. Because the pub is where your players are going to start the day. So explain that your characters work for this evil god and that they're actually going to be working for one day in this pub's location. You might even say that sometimes these characters, maybe they ask this evil god for help in something really silly like, oh hey, I need a fork but I only have a spoon. Evil god, can you help me? Boom, fork. Now you owe the evil god a favor and you have to work in the magic teleporting pub. Their characters are going to appear in the pub as the pub has teleported into this new location. I usually like to put the characters in kind of weird places like under the oven or in the stable. Just put them wherever. It's meant to be kind of silly. For the purposes of going through this, we're going to say that the pub is named the Blue Lantern and that the evil god is named Grum. So you're going to describe each player waking up in the pub with some kind of note strapped to their face so that they can basically wake up and it's the first thing that they see. And this is what the note says. You owe a debt to Grum. Work with my other debtors for 1 day at the Blue Lantern. Grum demands sacrifices. Any guests to the Blue Lantern must be sacrificed. Bring all sacrifices you can to the altar room. These sacrifices must be dead. You will work as the sign spinner. Once your debt is filled, you will be released. So have the players meet up and interact in character as actually maybe talking about how they got there, because the action's going to start pretty soon after that, but you still want to give your players a chance to interact with these completely different types of characters. If they've never played evil characters before, give them a chance to actually get into those evil shoes for a minute and see what it feels like. So once your players have had the opportunity to discuss their evil stuff with each other's characters and then gradually move out to start fulfilling their roles as the bartender, the housekeeper, the sign spinner, that is when the first wave of guests will appear. The first wave of guests are usually going to be a group of town guards, merchants, or travelers or caravanners, something that'll give them the opportunity to actually flex the combat muscles of their evil characters. So this first round of guests is meant to be a warm-up, a tune-up, but it's also meant to soften them up a little bit. Not completely KO them, but soften them up. Your players are going to try to maneuver the town guards, caravanners, whatever, into the altar room somehow. This has always resulted in combat. Sometimes the person who's trying to play the bard will try to seduce somebody into the altar room, and inevitably the person who's decided this is the first time they're going to play a barbarian jumps up on the bar and is just like, sacrifice for Grum, and then just attacks everybody, and it all just devolves anyway. It's important to know that if any of your players' characters die during this first incident, because I've had it happen, don't worry about it. Just have them write the name Junior after their character name, and then once this initial round of combat is dead, the evil god will just teleport, the brother of whoever just died into the world. That way your player doesn't have to take the time to create a new character or do anything else. Point is, you got to keep moving. After that tune-up round, the second round of guests comes into your evil tavern. Because remember back at the very beginning of this when I told you to collect everybody's character sheets? That's right. The second round of guests are actually going to be the player characters that your players at your table would normally be playing. The adventuring party will stumble into this evil tavern, and you, the DM, will get the chance to actually play all of the main characters from the main campaign as the opponents to the evil team. So here's where things can get a little tricky. If the evil characters manage to get a main character into the altar room, that character is gone for the rest of the one-shot. They are out. But if you as the DM, using your main characters as NPCs, manage to kill an evil character, they assume the role of their main character and fight against the other evil characters on the side of the GM and the main characters. Now, what happens if player A is playing evil A, but their main character is dead? What happens? Who do they take control of? Hand them a different character sheet, because now instead of playing a wizard, they're playing a fighter. And now they have to adapt to playing this other character. The player gets the opportunity to take a pre-existing character and step into the shoes of a character that they've seen somebody else play, and now they have to assume the role as best they can. The game ends if all of the evil characters manage to get the main characters into the altar room and sacrifice them. This can happen if the evil characters kill all of the main characters and drag their corpses in there, or just somehow manage to lock them into the altar room and shut the door. The evil team wins like that. Now, what happens? This is where you as a storyteller get to step in, and all of the main party members back in your regular campaign that you've been playing wake up from a terrible nightmare where they were all just killed in an evil pub by a bunch of random evil people. If the main characters win and they defeat all the evil characters, then everybody wakes up, but instead of a nightmare, it was just a very strange dream, and the aspect of one character inhabiting the body of another character just plays into that whole idea of it being a dream in the first place. So that way, the mechanics of actually handing off character sheets to people who don't normally play those characters can really play into that aspect of a dream, and it kind of ties the whole one-shot up in a nice little bow. Depending on how much time you have to actually do this one-shot, you may want to think about not including that first round of NPC tune-up combat. I've found that when I've done that, it's more likely that the evil team will win. If you've made all the evil characters to be one level higher than the regular characters your players are playing, they're in a better position to be successful in that combat against the main characters if they haven't already been softened up a little bit by those NPCs that came in the beginning. Maybe consider having your players create evil characters that are the same level as the main characters that they've already been playing. That way it's a little more balanced whenever everybody gets into the actual combat, whenever they're facing off against each other. Another alternative rule that I've done a couple of times, and you kind of have to let the players know you're going to do this, change the method of sacrifice. When I've done this in the past, I've had a lot of players be like, we're all going to play sorcerers. Cool. So now the sacrifice condition isn't that everybody has to be dead, they have to be alive, or one time I did it where all of the sacrifices had to go in there willingly. So that meant they either had to be persuaded, magically or otherwise, to go into the altar room. And that was actually a lot of fun. It ended up really kind of being like a evil episode of Fawlty Towers, if you can believe it. But all the players that were in that game had already played this evil one-shot one time before, so they kind of knew what to expect. You can also use this for a completely new group who's never played together and isn't playing a regular campaign. You can forego the whole handing the character sheets off at the beginning of the campaign. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is just have them create some evil characters and just send a couple of waves of just regular NPCs at them. Yeah, there's the mirror match aspect of it where you have them face their own characters, but there's also the aspect of just having fun playing evil characters. And I've done that before, and I've done it successfully with this one shot, so it's doable. One thing I want to give a word of caution about. This evil one shot, I've never had it go bad before, but I've always been aware that it could go bad in one specific way. This is not a one shot for a group where you might have a player who acts as a bit of a bully. If that's the case, I discourage you from using this. Don't do that. In my mind, it's always had the potential to go badly if you have a player who might have a bit of an abusive streak. Dinner's here. Use your best judgment with this because you know your players best, so just be aware of it. I've never had that happen, but in my mind, I've always been a little worried about the potential for that occurring. Just something to keep in mind. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you found the one-shot idea kind of fun. Every time I've ever run this, it's been a bunch of fun for me and a bunch of fun for the players. If you've ever done anything like this, I want to know. You can leave a comment here in the comment section or let me know on Instagram or Twitter. Also, if you've ever done anything like this and it's gone really well, let me know what's different. Let me know how you do evil one-shots, because this is something that I think can actually be a lot of fun for your players and a lot of fun for a storyteller. So in this idea of the one-shot, you're talking about comparing an evil character to a main character. And in life, you can end up comparing yourself to other people pretty frequently. I know I'm guilty of comparing myself to other people pretty commonly, and that's a great way to make yourself feel less than. Here's the thing. Comparing yourself to other people hurts, and it hurts you. In order to get out of that trap, a great way to do that is to really start to know who you are. And by knowing who you are, you don't need to compare yourself to other people because you start to develop a greater sense of self. And one of the best ways to start to develop a great sense of self is to learn more about yourself and to learn about your values. So that's what I have for you. Write down your values. Take some time, a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and write them down by hand. Don't just think about them. Write them down. Look at them. Think about them. What do you value? Because your values are what help you figure out how to make choices in your life, and they're how you figure out how to be successful. Because your values are unique to you. Yeah, you might share some of them with other people, but they're your values, and they are what help you to live your life the way you want to live it. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind, take care, and have fun adventuring.